Unsolved mysteries that took place at gas stations. It's the ultimate horror film scenario, running out of gas at night while driving in the middle of nowhere. Thankfully, there are gas stations everywhere these days, with many open 24 hours. So the odds of that scenario happening in real life are quite low. But service stations can still be ominous places where bad things happen. The disappearance of Kelly Dove. On the evening of June 18, 1982, 20-year-old Kelly Dove was working the graveyard shift alone at the Imperial gas station in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Sometime during the night, Kelly vanished without a trace, but not before she reported some disturbing incidents of harassment to the police. Shortly after midnight, Kelly called 911 to report that she was receiving obscene phone calls. She asked the police to check on her, but they never showed up. Later, Kelly phoned the police again to report that she was being harassed by a male customer, implying that he had indecently exposed himself to her. At approximately 2:30 a.m., a frightened Kelly called 911 for the third time to report another obscene phone call. She also claimed that the same customer had pulled into the parking lot in a silver Ford. The police finally decided to check on her, but Kelly was gone when they arrived 2 minutes later. Her purse had been left behind, but there were no signs of any struggle or robbery. The police received criticism for not going to the station until Kelly's third 911 call. They also neglected to close the store or dust for fingerprints after her disappearance. Kelly's family has always believed that a former high school acquaintance of hers with a history of indecent exposure and obscene phone calls might be responsible for the disappearance. But no evidence has ever tied him to the scene. Kelly Dove remains missing after more than 30 years. But perhaps the most tragic part of her story is that she had traded shifts with her sister and wasn't even supposed to be working that night. The disappearance of Susan Swedell. At approximately 4 p.m. on January 19, 1988, 19-year-old Susan Swedell left her place of employment in Oak Park Heights, Minnesota, and was driving to her home in Lake Elmo. Susan was about 2 kilometers, 1 mile, from her destination when she was forced to stop at a gas station because her car was overheating. According to the attendant on duty, Susan then climbed into another car at the station that was driven by an unidentified man. That was the last time anyone ever saw her. As Susan disappeared on a cold, snowy day, it seemed strange that her car overheated. However, an examination of her vehicle revealed that the petcock on her radiator had been loosened. One theory is that the unidentified man at the gas station had sabotaged Susan's car earlier so that he could follow her from her workplace and offer her a ride once she had car trouble. The case took another strange turn when Susan's mother visited her apartment and found the red pantsuit Susan had been wearing at work on her bed. Did Susan or another individual visit the apartment at some point after she disappeared? Sadly, after 27 years, there are still no answers about what happened to Susan Swedell. The disappearance of Tangina Hussein. At approximately 9 p.m. on October 2, 2008, Jamrul Hussein visited a gas station in the Hamtramck suburb of Detroit. According to Jamrul, 2-year-old Tangina Hussein was in his vehicle. Even though they shared the same surname, Tangina was not Jamrul's child, but he was dating Tangina's mother, Nilufa Begum. Jamrul claimed that he left Tangina in the locked vehicle to purchase a few items at the gas station's convenience store. When he returned to his car a few minutes later, Tangina was gone. Even though there were surveillance cameras at the station, Jamrul's car just happened to be parked out of camera range, so there was no way to verify what happened to Tangina. It wasn't long before suspicion started to fall upon Jamrul. Instead of searching for Tangina or calling the police after the girl went missing, Jamrul made the inexplicable decision to pick up Nilufa at her workplace. He acted strangely when she asked where her daughter was. Tangina's disappearance was not reported to the authorities until after Jamrul drove Nilufa back to the gas station. After the case received media coverage, the story took a bizarre turn when a 15-year-old girl came forward to claim that Jamrul had kidnapped and raped her earlier that same year. An investigation revealed that Jamrul and the girl had likely been involved in a consensual relationship. The kidnapping charge was dropped, but Jamrul was charged with statutory rape. In December 2009, he received a prison sentence of 15 years. Jamril is still considered a person of interest in Tangina's disappearance, but the child has never been found. The murder of Leo Lamontagne. On September 7, 1957, 19-year-old Leo Lamontagne was working the overnight shift alone at the Hub service station in Winnipeg. At approximately 4:20 a.m., a police officer stopped by the station and was shocked to discover Leo slumped over the office desk in a pool of blood. He had been struck on the head 3 times with a blunt object. Although Leo momentarily regained consciousness, he was unable to describe what had happened. Leo was rushed to a nearby hospital, but he passed away 4 days later. A pool of blood was found in the garage, indicating that Leo was probably attacked there. He had managed to make it to the office but passed out before he could call for help. Money was missing from the register, and some gas had also been stolen. The last confirmed sighting of Leo was approximately 2 hours before he was found. However, something suspicious did happen during that time. At 2:30 a.m., 2 young men pulled into the station to get some gas, but nobody came out to serve them. Finally, they saw a man entering the station's office. He approached the young men and told them that he was washing cars in the garage and that the pumps were currently closed. That man appeared to be in his 30s and was definitely not Leo Lamontagne. It's likely that he murdered Leo during a robbery attempt, but the killer has never been identified. The disappearance of Cheryl Scherer. In 1979, 19-year-old Cheryl Scherer was employed as an attendant at the Rhodes Pump Your Own service station in Scott City, Missouri. Originally, she had worked the night shift, so her family was relieved when her shift was changed to 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. But in a cruel twist of fate, Cheryl vanished in broad daylight. At some point between 11:40 and 11:50 a.m. on April 17, Cheryl disappeared while working at the service station. Her vehicle and purse were left behind, but $480 was missing from the register. So it seemed likely that she was abducted during a robbery. The station was located next to a grocery store that was usually busy. But in another strange twist of fate, the store was closed that day because the owner was attending his mother's funeral. On the surface, Cheryl's case seemed like the perfect crime. But it was eventually linked to serial killers Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole. After Lucas was arrested in the 1980s, he claimed that he and Toole had once abducted and murdered a young woman near Scott City before disposing of her body. Cheryl's disappearance was the only unsolved missing person case from the area during that time period. It was established that Lucas and Toole were in Scott City on the day Cheryl went missing. However, after looking at her photograph, Lucas denied that she was the victim. As Lucas and Toole are now deceased and both men were notorious for confessing to crimes they didn't commit, the full truth about Cheryl Scherer's disappearance remains a mystery. The disappearance of Kelly Cox. On the morning of July 15, 1997, 20-year-old Kelly Cox went on a field trip to the Denton jail as part of her criminology class at the University of North Texas. As she wasn't allowed to bring personal items into the jail, Kelly locked her purse and car keys inside her parked vehicle. She hid a spare key under the fender, planning to use that key to unlock the car after the field trip ended. However, when Kelly returned to her vehicle, her spare key didn't work. She hoped to use the phone inside the jail to call for assistance, but they wouldn't let her make a long-distance phone call. Instead, she left to use a pay phone at a nearby Conoco gas station. Kelly phoned her boyfriend, Lawrence Harris, and asked him to bring her another spare key. Sometime around 12:30 p.m., Lawrence arrived at the gas station. Her vehicle was still parked in its original spot, but there was no sign of Kelly anywhere. After Kelly was reported missing, the police suspected that Lawrence was involved. He was forced to pass multiple polygraph tests before he was cleared of any involvement in Kelly's disappearance. Her family has always been critical of the investigation, believing that the police focused too much energy on Lawrence. According to the family, the timeline made it impossible for him to have abducted Kelly. The police also failed to dust her car for fingerprints and may have missed crucial evidence. Nearly 2 decades have passed, and Kelly Cox's baffling disappearance remains unsolved. Thank you again for joining us for another video. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe and comment down below and let us know what you would like to hear in the near future. See you all again soon.